The baby shower was held at my daughter Sophie's house, a beautiful colonial in the suburbs with a perfectly manicured lawn and a 3-car garage. Pink and white balloons covered every surface, and 40 guests mingled in the spacious living room, cooing over tiny baby clothes and sipping mimosas. I arrived wearing my usual outfit, jeans, a simple blouse from Target, and my worn leather jacket that I'd owned for 15 years. My canvas tote bag, the free one from the public library, hung over my shoulder. "Mom," Sophie greeted me at the door, her eyes quickly scanning my outfit. "You made it." "Wouldn't miss celebrating my first grandchild," I said, handing her a gift bag. She peeked inside at the handmade baby blanket I'd crocheted. "Oh, that's sweet. You can put it with the other gifts." She gestured vaguely toward a table overflowing with expensive packages from high-end baby stores. My son-in-law, Trevor, appeared behind her, his arms sliding possessively around Sophie's waist. At 34, he was a corporate attorney who never let anyone forget it. "Eleanor," he said, not bothering with Mom or even a hug. "Glad you could make it. Sophie was worried you couldn't afford the Uber." "I drove," I replied evenly. "Still have that death trap from 2008, he laughed. "One of these days, that thing's going to break down and leave you stranded." Sophie touched his arm. "Trevor, be nice." "I am being nice. I'm concerned about her safety." He lowered his voice, though not enough. "Maybe after the baby comes, we should look into some kind of assisted living situation for her. Somewhere affordable." I was 68 years old, in perfect health, and still worked 50 hours a week. But I said nothing. I'd learned over the past 6 years of Sophie's marriage that arguing with Trevor was pointless. I made my way to the kitchen, where Sophie's friends, all dressed in designer labels, were preparing mimosas and petit fours. "You must be Sophie's mom." A blonde woman in Louboutin heels extended her hand. "I'm Melissa. Trevor has told us so much about you." "Has he?" I smiled, accepting a glass of orange juice. "He mentioned you're going through a difficult time financially." Melissa's voice dripped with pity. "It's so brave of you to come. These events can be intimidating when everyone else is so successful." Before I could respond, Trevor's voice boomed from the living room. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" He stood in the center of the room, champagne glass raised. "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate our little miracle. Sophie and I are so blessed. Great careers, beautiful home, amazing friends." The guests applauded. "Now, I know some families have their struggles," Trevor continued, his eyes finding me in the kitchen doorway. "Take my mother-in-law, Eleanor, for example. She's here today despite her circumstances." The room went quiet. Sophie's face flushed. "Trevor, what are you doing?" "Just being honest, honey. Eleanor lives like a homeless person. Seriously, I've seen her apartment. It's a studio, 1 room. Can you imagine? At her age, she should have built something by now, but instead she's living in poverty." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. "She drives a car that should be in a junkyard. She shops at thrift stores. She brings homemade gifts because she can't afford real ones." He shook his head sadly. "It's honestly depressing, which is why Sophie and I have decided to help." My daughter looked confused. "Help?" "Trevor, we never discussed." "I'm announcing it now. We're going to set up a small fund for Eleanor. Nothing major, maybe $50 a month so she can at least buy groceries without using coupons." He raised his glass higher. "To family, even the disappointing members." The room erupted in awkward applause. I stood perfectly still, watching my daughter's face cycle through embarrassment, shock, and something that might have been shame. Trevor walked over to me, his smile wide and condescending. "Don't worry, Eleanor. We'll take care of you. That's what family does, right? We support the ones who can't support themselves." "How generous," I said quietly. "I know it must be hard living like you do. That tiny apartment, that terrible neighborhood. You live like a homeless person, honestly." He patted my shoulder. "But don't worry, once the baby comes, we'll make sure you can at least visit in decent clothes." The room was watching us now, 40 pairs of eyes filled with pity, judgment, and curiosity. I smiled, the same smile I perfected over 43 years in business. "Trevor, could I ask you something?" He looked surprised. "Sure." "Where do you live? The address?" He blinked, confused. "What? You know where we live. You're standing in our house." "No, I mean your apartment. The one in the city. Your bachelor pad that you kept after the wedding. Sophie's head snapped toward him. What apartment? Trevor's confident smile faltered. That's not relevant right now. Humor me, I pressed. The address? I don't see what this has to do with. 847 Riverside Drive, Unit 12B, I said for him. Is that correct? His face went pale. How do you know that? I pulled out my phone. The iPhone 14 that Trevor had mocked me for buying, saying I was wasting money I didn't have on technology I didn't understand. I know because I own the building. I turned my screen toward him, showing the property management app. Riverside Towers, 42 units. I purchased it in 2019. The room went absolutely silent. That's impossible, Trevor stammered. I pay rent to Parkview Properties. That's my property management company, and I'm 7 buildings through it. I scrolled through my phone. You're currently 3 months behind on rent, Trevor. $8,400 total. My property manager has been very patient. Sophie's champagne glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the hardwood floor. You're lying, Trevor said, but his voice shook. This is some kind of joke. Melissa, I called to the blonde woman. You're a real estate agent, aren't you? Trevor mentioned that. Melissa nodded slowly, her eyes wide. Could you look up the ownership records for 847 Riverside Drive? I handed her my phone with the property documents already pulled up. Melissa's fingers trembled as she scrolled. Her face went white. Oh my God. Eleanor Martinez, you own. This says you own property worth $2.8 billion across 3 states. I finished. Give or take a few million, depending on the market. Trevor grabbed the phone from Melissa. His hands shook as he read. No, this is fake. You work as a secretary. I'm the CEO of Martinez Holdings. I do keep an office at one of my properties where I handle administrative work, yes. Some people call that secretary work. I call it staying hands-on with my business. Sophie sank into a chair, her hand over her mouth. The studio apartment, I continued. It's the penthouse of my building downtown. I converted the top floor into one open space because I like the layout. The 2008 car, it was my late husband's. He restored it himself before he died. I keep it running because it reminds me of him. Mom, Sophie whispered. Why didn't you tell me? I tried, sweetheart. Every time I visited, you were too busy. Too embarrassed to let me meet your friends. Too concerned about what Trevor thought of me. Trevor found his voice, desperate now. The thrift stores. Why would you shop at thrift stores if you're so rich? Because I find beautiful things there. Because I don't need to prove my worth through designer labels. Because the woman who runs the vintage shop on 5th Street is kind. And I like supporting her business. I looked around the room at 40 shocked faces. I don't live like a homeless person, Trevor. I live intentionally. There's a difference. Melissa was still scrolling through my phone. Eleanor, this portfolio, you own the Wellington building downtown, and the Riverside complex. And she looked up, stunned. You own half the commercial real estate in the city. About 40%, I corrected. I'm working on acquiring more. Trevor's confident facade had completely crumbled. Sophie, I didn't know. You have to believe me. My daughter wasn't looking at him. She was looking at me, tears streaming down her face. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. For what, honey? For being ashamed of you. For not defending you. For letting him. She gestured at Trevor. For all of it. I walked over and knelt beside her chair, taking her hands. You didn't know any better. You married a man who taught you that value comes from appearances. That success means showing off. That helping family means humiliating them first. Eleanor, please, Trevor started. I was just joking around. I didn't mean. You meant every word, I said, standing to face him. And now we're going to discuss consequences. His face went gray. What consequences? Your apartment lease is terminated effective immediately. You have 30 days to vacate. You can't do that. I absolutely can. Section 7 of your lease agreement prohibits subletting, which you've been doing, renting it out on airmum when you're here at the house. I have documentation. Trevor's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Additionally, your law firm, Morrison, Burke & Associates, rents their entire floor from me. I'll be discussing your behavior with the senior partners on Monday. They might be interested to know their junior partner is embezzling client funds to cover his gambling debts. How do you? He stopped, realizing. You can't prove that. I can, actually. When you use company credit cards at Atlantic City casinos, it leaves a trail. My accountant flagged the discrepancies 6 months ago. I've been waiting to see if you do the right thing. I smiled sadly. You didn't. Sophie was crying harder now. Trevor, tell me she's lying, please. He couldn't meet her eyes. Sophie, I said gently. The house you're sitting in right now, it's in foreclosure. Trevor stopped making mortgage payments 8 months ago. The bank is going to seize it in 60 days. My daughter's hand flew to her pregnant belly. What? But don't worry, sweetheart. I bought the mortgage last week. The house is yours. Trevor's name will be removed from the deed. You bought our house? I couldn't let my grandchild be born into instability. I turned back to Trevor. You have a choice. You can resign from your firm quietly, attend gambling addiction counseling, and I'll give you a reference for a new job. Or you can fight this, and I'll make sure every firm in the state knows exactly what you did. Trevor's whole body was shaking. This is blackmail. No, this is consequence. Something you've apparently never experienced. I picked up my library tote bag. Sophie, I'm going to leave now. When you're ready to talk, really talk, call me. You and the baby will always have a home. Trevor's welcome too if he gets help and proves he's changed. I walked toward the door, past 40 silent guests, past Melissa, who was still staring at my phone in shock, past the table of expensive baby gifts. Wait, Sophie called out. The blanket you made, where is it? I pointed to the gift table where my simple handmade blanket sat among designer items. She stood, walked over and picked it up, clutching it to her chest. This is the most valuable thing here, isn't it? Because you made it yourself. Value isn't always about money, sweetheart. I know that now. She looked at the room full of her stunned friends. I'm so sorry it took this long to see it. Trevor slumped against the wall, his perfect life crumbling around him. As I walked to my car, my late husband's carefully restored 2008 Mercedes, my phone buzzed. A text from my property manager. The eviction notices are ready to send for Riverside 12B. Proceed. I looked back at the house. Through the window I could see Sophie holding the blanket I'd made, tears on her face. I could see Trevor surrounded by guests who were already pulling away from him, phones out, probably Googling my name. I replied, hold the eviction, give him 60 days, and send him information for gambling counselors. Because that's what real wealth looks like. Not punishing people because you can, but helping them even when they don't deserve it. Even when they called you homeless. Even when they tried to humiliate you in front of 40 people. Because I hadn't built a $2.8 billion empire by being cruel. I built it by being smarter, harder working, and more patient than people who underestimated me. And sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's simply proving them wrong, then offering them a chance to do better.